welcome back to Grace's Room. So I know I graduated high school 2 years ago now, which is crazy, but I still get a lot of questions from people who are still at school, especially those who are in the 12th grade doing their final exams, asking for some study tips and how I prepared myself best, especially since I did end up getting a pretty decent score at the end of my schooling. So I ended up compiling some tips together that I think are the most essential to making sure that you're well prepared for your tests, your exams, whatever it may be, and making sure that you're using your time effectively. Some of these tips are things that I probably didn't do enough of, like maybe I wish I incorporated a little bit more into my study routine. A lot of these things I want to share are things that like really helped me make sure that I knew the content and I was well prepared. I think the thing I struggled with the most in year 12 was just that work-life balance, making sure that I had a good balance between doing work and also having time to myself, some free time. So hopefully you guys find these tips helpful, and let's get into it. So the first thing you want to do before you even start studying is to find the study design or the course guide for your class. If you're like, what on earth are you talking about? Maybe you were given a handout at the start of the year on a piece of paper, maybe there's a website or just some sort of base page that gives you an introduction or just an outline of everything that you're going to be covering throughout the year in your subject. And this is really helpful because normally it has all the information you need and like all the key concepts that you will be covering on your exam. So for example, I just found this on the VCE website, which is what we have in Victoria, and I found this for maths. It has like the area of study, and then it has all the outcomes and all the key skills and knowledge that you need to know in this particular topic. So basically you just want to use these key dot points because it will tell you exactly what you need to know for your test, and that way there'll be less surprises when you walk in on test day and you're like, oh, I didn't expect that to be there, because normally you'll have an idea of everything you need to cover. The next thing, this is probably the thing I used the most in year 12 when I was studying for my exams, and that was making mind maps for all of my topics. If you don't know what a mind map is, you basically just start with like your key concept in the middle, and then you just keep branching out with arrows just to keep expanding on each like the subtopics throughout the subject. You can add like some key dot points as well if that helps you. It just gives you a really basic outline of everything that you've covered in the unit, especially if you're thinking like, oh, like there's so much information, where do I start? I'll insert some footage here, but my walls were covered in mind maps. I had so many, and they honestly just helped me so much just to sort of help condense my thinking, and they were really fun to draw as well. It was a little bit more of a fun way to learn. Active recall is one of the most important things you can do while studying to help you apply and memorize your knowledge, I guess. One of the most effective ways I found to use it personally was attempting to teach someone else the content that you're learning about. Sometimes if I couldn't find someone else to talk to, I would literally just get the Camera Booth app up on my computer and I would just pretend to talk to it as if I was like teaching someone else the content that I'm learning about. And honestly, it was just so helpful. I don't know, maybe because I just love talking, but it just really helped me like sort of think about how I would explain it if I were trying to teach someone else the content. I suppose one of the benefits of just filming it by yourself as well is that you can just keep going over the concept until you get a good idea of it, and it just really helps to like strengthen your memory. Another very useful tool, especially if you're about to go into a test or an exam, is to find a glossary of the key terms that will actually appear in your questions. Normally these terms will be seen across like all subjects, like explain, define, evaluate, and actually understanding what these key words are asking you to talk about in your answer will help make sure that you get full marks for your question. Normally it's super easy to find this glossary online, like with just a quick Google search. I found this one from the New South Wales government, a glossary of keywords. And if we go down to discuss, for example, here it just wants you to give an overall statement and then like some positives and negatives for whatever you're talking about and your question is. Because honestly, sometimes it doesn't even matter if you know the content super well. Some of these testers are just looking to see if you're answering the question in the way they want you to answer it. So it's really important that you have a good understanding of those key terms. A bit more of an organizational tip, but I found it super helpful to have all of my notes sort of just in one place, whether I put them all into one binder or if I put them just into OneNote like I have here. Like this is what I'm doing for uni at the moment. I just have all my notes in one OneNote folder. And this just makes sure that you don't have to open up like 10 million different documents or papers to try and get all your notes together. This is my notes or my glossary book that I had for maths in year 12. I had like a bunch of like practice questions in there, all my notes as well, like just really simple explanations, and it was just so helpful that I could have it all just in one spot so I wasn't constantly trying to open all these different documents. I actually made this huge binder for exams back in year 12 that I think I actually showed on this channel. I wish I kept it, but for some reason I think I threw it out. It just had all of like my subject information just in one concise binder that I could bring around with me, and it just made me feel so much more organized. I know I keep saying this for every single tip, but this one is very important, and that is to make sure that you're making your studying or your learning just more fun and engaging for yourself. Like let's be real, sometimes answering practice questions and writing out a bunch of notes can get super boring. So honestly, finding ways to make the content more digestible and easier for you to understand is probably going to end up benefiting you in the long run and helping you remember those key concepts that you need to know. I don't even want to think about the amount of cue cards that I went through in year 12, but I'm telling you, they worked. Like, especially if you're trying to recall definitions, it's so helpful, especially you can get someone else to test you. Make diagrams as well. Like, this is one that we used in maths because, you know, who doesn't love a good drawing? How much easier is this to look at than like a big paragraph? I don't know what my obsession is with whiteboards, but just for some reason, it just makes me want to learn. Like, I love writing on a whiteboard. I don't know if anyone else is like this too, but you can get really cheap ones just from like Officeworks or the supermarket. It almost makes you feel a bit like a teacher, you know, writing on the whiteboard. I love to do this, especially like, you know, for mind maps, diagrams, just even like writing key dot points. Another thing as well is to break down paragraphs into key little dot points, because let's be real, you're going to be more likely to remember keywords from some dot points than you are from one big chunky paragraph. This is one of the tips that I wish I did more of while I was studying in year 12, and that is going to a library or some sort of public study space to do your studying. Like, you know, you could go to the public library or you could go to like your school's library, wherever it may be. There's just something about being in a collaborative space where everyone else around you is also studying that just switches my brain on personally, so I'm just assuming it works for everyone else too, and it just makes me want to study. I'm actually shocked at the amount of work I seem to get done when I go to a library to study. If you don't have access to a library or you can't leave the house for some reason, you could also study outside, in the kitchen, at your desk. I know studying on your bed is so much more comfortable than having to sit at a desk or something. Trust me, I still do it now in uni and I did it a lot in year 12, but I honestly regret it so much because it just made me so much less productive, and I often ended up taking naps while I was on my bed. Overall, just switching up your study location can really help motivate you, especially if you've been studying for a long time. I know they can be super annoying to do, but they're not lying when they say that doing practice exams are crucial to making sure that you're not walking into your exam blind. I went through so many practice exams in the lead up to my year 12 exams. I have a whole binder here of all the exams that I did. Obviously, this will help you get a better understanding of the way that the questions might be worded on your exam and get you into a better habit of answering questions and actually applying your knowledge. You can ask your teacher to provide you with practice exams. You can search them up on the internet, and if for some reason you can't seem to find any practice exams or you've already done all the ones available to you, you can always ask AI as well to actually generate some questions for you to answer. Time management is obviously one of the biggest things that sometimes I found myself struggling with in year 12, but it is very important to make sure you're actually planning out your schedule and making sure you have a very clear idea of how you're going to approach your study sessions. I always loved using a good weekly planner. I personally liked handwriting mine, but you can also do it just on like Google Calendar as well. This will obviously be very helpful for planning around the actual days of your exams, so you have a good idea of like when you need to prepare for a certain exam, especially if you have them like consecutively. And don't stress yourself out if you find yourself not being able to stick exactly to your schedule. Like, I know this is something I used to worry about as well, especially if I was like a day behind or something, because you can always just reorganize it and allocate your time in other ways that might work for you better. I know you're probably sick of hearing this one because I feel like everyone says it in their study videos, but it is really important, and that is actually prioritizing taking time for yourself and giving yourself breaks during your study periods. You could go outside, go for a walk, spend some time with your friends, bake something fun. Your brain will be exhausted if you try to cram all your studying in over a long period of time, and you're going to end up taking more in if you're just breaking up your studying into little sections and actually giving yourself time to step away from your work. Have a glass of water. If there is one thing I certainly did not get enough of in my final year of school, it was sleep. Sleep is so important, guys, and I really did not value it back then. Especially at our young ages, we need sleep to help regenerate our brains. It just helps our body repair. If you're trying to stay up later because you're stressed about getting all your studying in, you're honestly better off just going to sleep, getting a good rest, and waking up earlier to finish off your studying if you need to, because staying up late, you honestly won't even end up learning anything because your brain is so tired. You're running on like barely anything. You just need time to rejuvenate. And finally, possibly one of the most basic one of them all, and that is your mentality. It is super important that you're walking into these exams with a positive, healthy mentality. I know sometimes this can be easier said than done, but it really is important. The way you frame the exam in your mind can impact how you study for the exam, your anxiety around it, and sometimes even the outcome of the exam. Personally, anxiety was definitely something I struggled with a lot in year 12 and definitely almost made me not want to study because I was too stressed about like how am I going to do on this exam. So one tip I could give you is just to not put so much pressure on yourself. Like, just treat this exam like any normal test that you would do. Like, how would you normally study for a test? How would you normally prepare yourself? What's your mindset going into any other test? Obviously, I understand that sometimes these exams that you do can be really important to your schooling, whether you get into a certain university, for example. But if you're walking into your exam stressed out, you're going to be less likely to remember things. I always found that while I was really stressed out before the exam, as soon as I sat down, it was just like a sense of calm that came over me, and I was suddenly able to remember so much more information that I thought I would be able to. Just trust yourself walking into these exams, know that you've done the work that you need to do, you've studied, you know this content, so now it's just time to prove it. Well, hopefully you guys found these tips helpful. I know these are definitely things I'm gonna have to reiterate to myself while I'm studying at university. And if you are about to do any exams, your finals, then good luck to you. I hope you do super well. I know you will now because you have these amazing tips. Don't forget to check out my Instagram at grace.moldguru and my TikTok at grace.moldguru. And I'll see you guys next time on Grace's Room. Bye for now.